There
Hey
we
ho, everybody.
are. Well, guess what? It must be about 9 o'clock-ish.
9 o'clock-ish.
Somewhere's around that.
Yep.
And that's when we show up.
It is.
Each and every week, that's what we do. And this must be another segment of What Really Matters.
It is.
And that's what it is. We put together a pretty good couple of packages, and tonight we were going over one of the ones that we found very important through our lives, and
some things that we've learned
and yes,
recently, to be honest with you, over the last few years, because our kids are now adults.
Things that happened to us and things that didn't, but we learn from watching and sometimes getting caught, and that's what we're kind of going to talk about tonight. Some of the things we actually did pretty well, and tonight's topic is...
Well, we are good parents.
I'd like to think so.
I know we are.
I'd like to try.
I know we are. I'm not even going to say.
No, I'm not.
We are good parents who make mistakes.
Yeah, and willing to admit it, but hopefully correcting it and sharing that so others make less mistakes, or at least different ones.
Right. And that's all that matters.
No sense repeating what we've done wrong. Make up your own new ones.
Right. So while we're getting started, I know I'm going to cut you off before you introduce it. Well,
right.
You need to introduce us, just
right.
not the topic yet. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm Todd, and this is my beautiful wife, Michelle.
Hey, everybody.
And we're going to talk to you today about...
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
This is What Really Matters. And last week was our 1-year anniversary, and we had a little contest going. So we asked our viewers to share, and we were giving away a $50 gift card, basically to where they wanted, because everybody's in different time zones and places. I don't know what restaurants y'all have near you, or if you just want a Visa card or whatever. But anyway, the winner being announced tonight is Theresa Johnson. Everybody cheer.
There you go.
Now we're ready to start.
They must have put in the work.
We are ready to start.
Sharing and going. Speaking of which, tonight we are talking about... You want to fanfare me?
Drum roll. Here.
What your adult children
can y'all hear
need...
the drum roll?
No. What your adult children need from you.
Yes.
And a little bit
back
the other direction
what
as well.
The adult children should be doing, but that's just a little bit, because we'll get into that more on the next segment.
And
okay.
Before we jump into your first one, I had written down a thing. Of course, as always, reiterating that the principles of which we guide all of the things that we're going to be talking to you about are going to be from the top down, which means godly principles that work in everyday life. That's kind of the basis of what really matters is about. What really matters is God and all the principles that He has that helps make your life flow a little easier.
Right.
And these are the things that are tried and true. So it's an expressions of
tried and true,
not tied and true. You could tie them up.
Tried and true.
Expressions of godly principles and practices. So here's a few of them right here.
Okay, so one of the things that there's like 6 main topics. And then I've got some prayers for you to pray over your adult children.
All right.
So the first one is they need your acceptance. Now, I want you to hear me out. Oh, trust me. Everybody knows. I do. So you, family should be the place where you are comfortable to be yourself and where you feel accepted. Your children, and I as a child, even in my early 20s and whatevers, did not make choices. Your children will not make choices that you accept. That's fine. You don't have to like everything they do to accept your child. So try to be careful when you're vocalizing to them the things that you don't like, which we're going to get into further down the road. And don't take your children as adults as an indictment to how you raised your children, or to be prideful. Like if you have kids, right?
Say that again?
Well, because some people have children that turn out to be, maybe not the best citizens out there. And so they take on the guilt and the things and act like, it's all their fault. Oh, woe was me. I was a horrible mom. I didn't get my kid raised right or whatever. Right. But then you've got parents that do the opposite. Oh, my kid's just so amazing. He's doing this and he's doing this. And let's not kid ourselves. Your kid's not perfect. I mean, they're going to be good kids.
And
Don't get me
nor was
wrong.
necessarily your parenting any better.
And your parenting
are different than
and
the
you
other.
could be parenting 4 or 5 kids, and you
Right.
have 2 or 3 that turn out like, whoa, and a couple that did not. It's not our parenting. It's what God uses us.
We're not sure
and
what it means. Excellent in the eyes
of society.
Yeah.
But what we want is for them to be excellent in the eyes of God.
Right.
So you need to show your child that you accept them. Doesn't matter what. You don't have to accept their actions or their choices or what they're doing, but you accept your child. And now we are talking about adult children here. We are not talking about
Yes,
littles.
we are talking
We are
about adult
talking
children.
about out of the house or
You've done your
definite
rearing,
adults.
you've done your deed.
raising them. That's what we're talking about. Okay. So
Like-
our next
like
one.
18 above, 21 and
Well,
above.
I mean, we have like a
somewhere-
22-year-old that's in our house, and he's an adult, and he gets to make his own decisions.
Right.
This applies to him. He still lives at home, and we're okay with that because he's working, he's paying his own bills, he's doing his own thing.
We don't treat him like a teenager.
But we don't treat him like a
young
teenager.
man.
We don't give him a bunch of rules. I have one rule: go to church with us. And that's about it.
Right.
So,
I
okay,
mean,
what's number 2? Number 1 was your acceptance. Number 2 is
Your approval. What does that mean? Well, approval and acceptance are different.
yes,
Wouldn't you
they
say
are.
they're different?
Yep,
How would you
because
think?
I can accept you, but I might
Yeah.
not approve of.
Whatever. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
Approval means the belief that something or someone is good or acceptable.
Right.
And that opens up a whole broad spectrum. But what we're talking about, making sure we understand the difference between acceptance and approval.
But the thing is, your adult child, while maybe doing things that you don't want to accept or that you would even approve of,
Right, they can be both.
You see the genuineness of that child. You know the inner being of that child. That's what your approval is. That's what you're accepting. Those are 2 separate things.
That's what we're trying to
And
point
you're
out.
trying to pull out the goodness that relates to their moral character because you know it's deep inside them because you helped put it there when you raised them.
The approval is to the person, the persona of which
Yes.
we're speaking.
Right.
The actions might be different, but you speak, right here, real big, speak to the approval in your child.
Right.
Adult child, even your
Yes.
little ones, you want to do
Well,
that.
yeah.
Always, with all
Right.
people, speak to the goodness, in this case, the approval that's within that person. Speak it in.
you just said that
existence.
to all people. I'm going to take this out because we're generally talking families and spouses, and this time we're doing our kids. But even with people you work with,
Mm-hmm.
you want to. I mean, we have a girl that we work with that's working her tail off. Okay. And she's working really hard, and she's making some mistakes, and there's some things.
But she's making a lot of successes,
But
too.
yes, but so my point is, so today we had a rough day at the office. The whole office had a really rough day. It was just sucky. And
was.
last Friday was a little sucky for all of us at the office. So we've had a couple of rough days recently. So she comes up to my desk and starts talking to me and asks. And so instead of like, because let me tell you, there are times that we come home and we're just over everything that happened at the office. But oh, it's just me. So, but today when she came to me and she started asking questions, I was like, well, here. And I started telling her how good she was doing and all of the things and letting her know. And that's basically what you're doing with your child or your spouse or another family member. It doesn't have to be limited. You want to speak to the good. You want to speak and call that out. There are seeds that were planted. God planted them there. You're calling forth those seeds to be brought out. Anyway, sorry, I took over.
And since the approval means good or acceptable, goodness, what's that? What is goodness? Goodness relates to moral character,
Right.
and is an aspect of spiritual formation, and goodness is one of the fruits of the Spirit. So that's why you want to speak to that. It leads to good things. It brings in the fruits that we want to usher in.
Right.
So you want to make sure that those things.
Well, there's an example of
requires an
this.
action, words or an
It
action,
does.
and together.
What do you do? You have to apply action.
Yes.
I want to talk about this one because I know this is your paragraph topic, but my favorite, one of my favorites, and in the movies when it's portrayed and you hear God say this, I just fall apart. And it makes me think, I want to hear him say it about me. And this is what your adult child needs to hear from you. And that is when, Jesus goes to have John the Baptist baptize him. When he's baptized, after it, God says, "This is my son whom I'm loved. With him I am well pleased." Okay, see, that moves me every time. I can't even read it off of a piece of paper. And I just can't imagine. Can you imagine this booming voice from the clouds saying that over, like that's your daddy. That's your daddy talking about you to the world, right? Okay, so your adult child needs that from you. Your adult child, even with their mistakes, even with the things that you may not approve of, they need to hear you say you love them, you approve of them, you accept them. You don't have to accept those actions and those things that they're doing. But anyway.
Importantly, along with that, if you project that approval, then the attempts to achieve it can be cheapened by that child trying to achieve that in the wrong ways. So if you just project it from the get-go, you take that burden off the child of trying to get it out of you.
Well, just find the things that you can talk about. From me, you don't have to. You don't have to point out all the negatives. Now, I know there's a time and a place for that, and that's going to be next week's topic. Right. But this week,
and I also recognize the only
positive stuff.
True approval that anybody needs
is God's.
And
let me tell you,
but we're talking
have a
about
rough time with that.
We're talking about a family dynamic here.
Right.
So we're talking about at this level, people still desire that. Okay. And that's real.
So the next one is... this is going to go both ways. This is going to go to the parents of adult children and to the adults, to your parents. This cuts both directions. And it's about your advice. And I'm going to tell you both to set boundaries. Parents, set boundaries as to what they're allowed to advise for, because there may be some things you don't want to talk about. Kids, you may not want to discuss everything with your parents, and that's okay. Set your own boundaries.
Right.
It's very important that you have boundaries, especially with this topic. But parents, do not give unsolicited advice.
My goodness.
That is parenting your adult child, and all that's going to do is blow up in your face, because they're not going to listen to it, especially if it's done in a harsh manner. So just be very, very careful.
If they keep getting hounded.
If you keep getting right, so don't keep getting in their face. Don't. And again, I'm going to apply this to me even with other relationships. This one person keeps coming to me, telling me all the things about their life, and I keep trying to tell them, this is what I would do, this is how I would do, this is how I would do. And when I was preparing for tonight, God's like, why aren't you this way with her? And I was like, oh. Okay, God, so you're going to correct me. Okay.
Both ways.
But it's not me. It's just the way I respond to it.
I've got to be consistent.
Well, it's just like if somebody's coming to me and telling me all this garbage all the time, and it's the same drama all the time, I'm going to tell you to turn it off. But God's kind of like, maybe she just needs to talk. Okay. I'll sit and listen. I got to shut this, which y'all know is really hard to do, and just listen to her. So parents, be careful. But kids, be willing to go to your parents and ask for advice. They're smart. They've lived life way longer than you. They've screwed up more times than you could have yet, and they've made some good choices. And so they're going to know what works for them, and they can share that with you.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And you pretty well said it all. This was the biggest yellow light of the night, where I see more people speeding through the last second with advice before it turns red, and they know they've gone too far, but they're going through.
Yes.
I see it all the time. They're going to go ahead
and dump it on their kids anyway.
I see it everywhere I go, and it's just so damaging.
It does damage a relationship. Mm-hmm.
And you don't really realize it until it's too late, and then you got to fix it.
Yep.
Next, we're going to talk about your love.
Right.
Yeah, well, what are we talking about?
Before you start that, I'm going to tell y'all, for y'all just coming in here, what your adult children need from you.
That's what I was about.
I'm going to do a recap. Sorry, didn't mean to take over. Your acceptance, your approval, your advice. Careful. And now, your love.
Your love. Did you know love it's kind of a feeling. But you know what love really is? It's an action.
It is.
It's a decision.
And we've discussed
you make
that
first.
Going this way, too.
Yep.
You have to make that choice.
You do. You
Same
make
with
it
your kiddos.
every time you get up. You rekindle it, and you accept it, and you say, "This is what way it's going to be. I'm going to choose to love today."
Right.
And that love is it feels well. Forget your feelings. That's great if they line up with what your love is doing. But sometimes your feelings and your love are completely contrary to each other. Your love is constant. That means you always want the best for that person.
You have to separate
that
them.
You put them before you. That no matter what, you're dedicated to the relationship and that person that we're talking about. In this particular case, you separate your feelings from your choices as well. When you allow we're kind of in a feel-good society today where you hurt my feelings or I feel this. Those are times for you to pull back and let the love come through. And sometimes different words come out of your mouth when you choose to love than when you choose to feel.
Well,
what do you think?
I'm just,
how do you feel about
but
that?
let's just go to the, what did God tell us to do? To love everybody. You're supposed to love them, whether they mean or not. And let me tell you,
Didn't say
sometimes
it would feel good.
He never said it'd feel good.
All the
And there
time.
are
It
people
will
that's
feel
really
good.
hard to love. And sometimes it's your own family
right.
member. Sometimes it can be your kids. Sometimes it can be your adult parents and your adult children.
Yep.
Some days, I can tell you, I remember days raising my kids. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
Lord, give me some deliverance up in here. This is about to kill me. So I'm just, it's tough. There's days
Get this
you
kid
just,
to bedtime before
man,
something bad
I gotta
happens.
do something. So, it is. It's all about taking the right actions and making sure you're applying what God has taught us to do. And at the end of this, I'm going to go over some prayers that might help.
And in this topic, we've had our challenges recently with a lot of different things in life and family and the whole 9 yards. And it'd be my brother-in-law, would it not, that reiterated family matters. No matter what, family matters. No matter goofball, weirdo, stupid stuff's going on, you have to put family at the top of the pyramid. We're not saying placing God. We're talking about putting them in the relationship where they belong. You never put anything above God.
Right.
We have to make sure that whenever we are making decisions and speaking out, that we're speaking in love and towards the family unit.
Right.
Sometimes there's people you need to avoid, but you're still called to love them. That means you still have to interact with them. Means you have to bring them in. So
That is true.
family
Okay.
matters. I have to repeat that to myself every now and again. Family matters.
Family matters. It's easier for me than it is for him. Okay.
It's just done.
He's done. Your guidance. Okay, so this is the next topic. We're almost done.
Yeah,
to be honest
we are,
with you,
honestly.
we're going through this really quick. As a child, do y'all remember when you were a kid going to your parents and having to tell them you broke something or, you did something wrong? Do you remember doing anything like that? No? What
was a
about the
perfect
baseball?
child.
Do you hear Cassie in there
I
meowing?
never did that.
She's in there meowing. She needs us, Daddy. Our
They-
kitty cat
my family
had
blames
surgery
me to
today.
this day because of my mother's
Well,
misconstrued idea
whatever,
that I
but
broke
I mean,
a window.
okay.
I didn't do it.
So when our kids were little,
I did a bunch of other things.
they should have felt like it was okay to come to us when things happened. And if y'all watched the thing that we did about a year ago on, I can't remember the name of the one that we did the episodes with the truck.
Yeah, I don't remember it
Anyway, so my kids learned because I did something wrong and saw the look on my kid's face and was like, okay, well, they're going to be able to come to me from now on. And so they did, and I did change things. And it is, you're more important than the things in the house and all this kind of
that
stuff.
became a family motto.
So, and I also, my daughter being
What was
much
it?
older,
Say it again. The kid?
you're more important to me than any item in my house. Now, I may cry, especially if it's something of my mom's or whatever, if it breaks, but you're still more
So
important.
that person.
The person is more important than any of my
than
stuff.
Things.
Right.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so now, then my daughter, who was probably a preteen at that point, teenager, early teens, we had a deal worked out where she could come to me and say, hey, you may not like this, but I really need to talk to you. And that way I could process the fact that I'm about to be told a bunch of crap I don't want to hear. But I didn't have to respond. react. I could wait and think about it and then respond appropriately. So what we're going to do as adults is, as your adult child, or even as us, if we want to go to our parents and say,
Sure.
this is where we've messed up and we really need some advice. We need your guidance. So as parents, when your children, adult children, come to you and say, hey, we've screwed up, whether it's finances or, hey, maybe they got in trouble with the law. Maybe they've, got fired. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Maybe their spouse left them. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that can happen in your child's life that they need help with.
Right.
But they should be able to come to you and get your guidance without, this is the key,
Condemnation?
yes, when they come to you, you can't just pick up the Bible and go, well, if you had been living a better Christian life, or had you been doing this better.
Harumph.
Yes, you cannot be so judgy. Now, I'm going to get people who tell me, but as Christians, we are called to judge. We are called to judge other Christians in kindness and love.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Read Timothy. That's what he tells us.
True.
So, we are to judge others. That does include our children. However, the way you do it, if you see your child not, and this goes for children to your parents, just saying.
Yeah, it does.
It could. If you see them doing things that's not what you would consider their normal Christian life, you could ask them, hey, is there something going on that we need to talk about? I've noticed some things.
You're getting flaky.
That might be a little off, but could we pray? Could we do something? Don't just go, well, in the Bible, this says, and you will go to hell because of it. Because then your kid's
that brings
never
us
going to...
together so much.
Yeah,
Nothing brings the
but
family together like telling them how much they're doing
how
things
many
wrong.
Parents do that. So we need to make sure... here's the deal. Ultimately, you're responsible for your kids coming to know Christ when they're little. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you knew Christ when they were little, but if not, then, it is
dedicated them to do that.
But, right.
Right.
When they become adults, it is between them and God.
It is.
And you can pray for them, and you can give them some guidance when they come to you, but you need to give it to them in love. Now, to the adult children, going to your parents. Let me tell you something. It can be very therapeutic to go to your parents and say, hey, I remember when I was a kid, this is what happened when you parented me, and I'm not real sure. I don't remember. Can you kind of give me some wisdom? Can you guide me through a couple of those things? Now, here's the deal. Your child may not take your guidance and your all so wonderful wisdom, and that's okay. They asked you for it, and that's great.
If they asked for it.
If they asked for it.
If they asked for it.
If they come to you with guidance, then you share. Be careful not to judge. Be careful to just share what worked for you. Share what didn't work for you. You also have to realize, like for us, we had 4 kids. And let me tell you, not a discipline worked on any of them the same. 4 totally different discipline types. It's crazy. You would think there would have at least been 2 and 2 or 3, I don't know. None were the same. So if my kids were to come to me and say, hey, when I was a kid, what worked with me, because my kids just like me, well, I would tell you what I did with you as a kid. That did work. I would also tell you what didn't work. So those are things. So go to your parents and talk to them. It's great.
Right.
Okay.
Got it all in there. And that brings us, you mentioned it in there, wisdom.
Right.
Obviously, as we moved up the spectrum here, the scale, we're approaching greater things, and wisdom's kind of what we're after. Through all these different things we just talked about, you push them together, and they eventually come out in wisdom. And what's wisdom? Well, wisdom's kind of a combination of advice and knowledge. It's lessons learned through experiences and resolutions. It's not just words. Wisdom actually is from experience, and a godly or a good outcome has come from it, and then you can consider your advice wisdom. And there's earthly wisdom and there's godly wisdom. Be careful which one you're giving.
Well, and it's a difference, too, than just gossiping. Because I know some parents will just sit around, and I know, well, this is one of the things. I am going to interrupt you here real quick, and I'm sorry.
No kidding.
I know. I do it all the time. So, mamas, when you get with your kids, it is not your job to fill in every child about all the other children, because then you're just gossiping.
My goodness.
If it's just to gossip.
That's true.
Now, I do talk
It's easy to fall into.
about my kids to my kids. But generally speaking, there's nothing gossipy because they already all kind of know it.
It's not gossip if it's all positive.
And, well, yeah, and I'm not putting them down, and I'm not talking about things that are going on in their lives. So you have to be careful. Now, I know there's a friend told me when I asked her about that one time, she said, well, it's kind of like moms need to thread their children together. And the way to do that is while you're visiting one or two, you're talking about the other, I have 4, so talking about the other 2.
It's true.
And I get that, and that's awesome. And it is wonderful because I do it.
It's a natural
But there is
thing.
a line that you cross where you start gossiping even about your own family. And when you have to be careful. And I'm guilty of that, not necessarily with my kids, but maybe with my other family members. Just trying to actually even keep what I think I'm doing is keeping my kids updated. And then it turns out it's like, oh, wait. Was I keeping them updated or was I gossiping?
Right.
And so, moms, be careful when you think you're doing this. Anyway, sorry.
And there's different things you say to different people.
Part of your wisdom.
It is. You know enough to know what to share and what not to share. Make sure you think about it before you open your mouth, and make sure it's going to bring about a positive result. That's the fruit. That's the general basis of wisdom. Share your stories on things you've learned from your mistakes and from the good stuff in your life. I don't know why. Sometimes the bad stuff teaches good lessons as well. But obviously,
it does, and it's funny. I mean, think about it. If you tell your kids all the garbage you survived, and oh my goodness, at our age, we got to do it way before there was any kind of internet, so the whole world would know what's going on in your freaking life.
Well, it's
I guess
it's 100 times worse now because once you put it out there, you can.
Oh, you can't take it back.
At least we could have moved.
Right, but I mean, yeah, we did survive some stuff.
But keep in mind that wisdom is almost always soft and patient. It's seldom, if ever, I can find, maybe they find an old root somewhere, and it's always loving and brings good fruit.
Right.
If it doesn't have those things, then you're probably off on something else that you think is wisdom, and it's probably not so smart.
Right.
Being smart and being wise are 2 different things, by the way.
That's true.
Just because you're smart doesn't...
book smarts because you went to college doesn't make you smart.
No.
Makes you book smart in that topic that you learned.
Yeah, and it may not have an application to a good fruit. It just may have an application to a deed. Wisdom always reflects God's word, spoken and action.
Right.
So that's how you know when you're sharing these things. You can feel it. You know it when you're, and you can tell when the Holy Spirit latches on. And you start to tell the story, all of a sudden you can feel that presence, and you're like, I am sharing something, and then halfway
that's
through,
going to benefit my
you realize
child.
that someone else is speaking for you, or you're like, wow, that was really good, and you're like, yep, let that part roll. That's the part you want to roll on with. Yeah, and if you have that good relationship, we were just talking about all those things that we were sharing, write them down. This is a good chance for a little bit of legacy to have benefit. If you're ever going to have legacy out of your Christian walk, let's let it share itself down in the family and become embedded in your family history for others to repeat and reflect. What?
Divorced parents, don't be yakking about the other divorced parent to your children.
That wouldn't be wise.
It's not wise.
No, I wouldn't.
I was not perfect in always uplifting Crystal's dad, and I did share some things with her I probably shouldn't have over the years. But for the most part,
you did try to get most of it out of the
did
way.
try to keep, and I still would tell you all the good things about him. And I would still tell you, there's definitely good. So, I want you to focus if you're divorced.
Even I can say good things. He's a good guy.
Yeah, if you're divorced and you have adult children, they don't want to hear all the garbage that you have against their parent. That's their parent too. So I'm just letting you know, let it go, because
doesn't bring about anything successful.
It's not bringing about love. It's not showing good fruit.
It's actually teaching failure, and that's not what you want.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Now you had some of these.
I do.
Scriptures.
I have some scriptures that You can be praying over your adult children, and I can post these later. Ephesians 1:17 through 19. Pray for the spirit of wisdom and revelation so that they walk in God's wisdom. These are praying, and these can be prayed for your little kids as well as your adult kids, but I picked them for my adult kids. Colossians 1:9 through 12. You're going to pray that they walk in a manner worthy of the Lord to please Him and bear good fruit. You know, it's kind of hard because some of these that I pray, it's kind of like, I need to be praying this over me because, God, I'm probably not walking worthy of you at all. You know, there's times you got to reflect. I mean, it's kind of good that you're praying these over your kids because God can point out where you're not where you should be in some instances. And y'all know I always tell y'all, there's never a time that I'm praying for somebody else or even preparing these that He doesn't use it as a way to
give
talk to
you a little
me.
Gotcha? Yeah.
Philippians 4:19.
In a good way.
So here's the deal. In Philippians 4:19, it talks about God supplying our needs. And we all need to know God supplies our needs. Well, this is really good for those of us who had to go through empty nesting. It killed me, people. Okay? I just couldn't handle it. But praying that God's going to supply all their needs. I can't be there for my kids.
No,
They're
you
not
can't.
even close to home, half of them. You know, I mean, one lives with me and one lives right down the road. And I started working full time, so I don't even feel like I'm there all the time for her and her kids anymore. And I used to be, because during the week it was I got to see her all the time, but now I'm working, and then weekends come up. I forgot how close
they were. We just drove there, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, you know.
Yeah, it's
they're
not that
just
far.
right over there.
Yeah. So Micah 6:8, what the Lord requires, this is what the Lord requires. And you're praying that your children fulfill this, that they're going to walk in justice, they're going to be just. They're going to walk in love. They're going to walk in kindness. They're going to walk humbly in the Lord. They're not going to be prideful or boastful. This is all things that you want to have to pray over your adult children. If you don't see it, then you might want to reflect, hey, where did you, because some of the kids are like their parents and they may be a little prideful, and that needs to, you know, a seed you might want to be praying comes out.
Was that nice?
I'm just playing, but we do have one that's just like him. And the one area that he's so much like him is
the worst one.
Is it not?
Yeah.
The pride?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just saying.
Did you hear my
I
voice
was
get real
being
high?
totally serious. Proverbs 4:23, to guard their hearts, because this world today is out to get them. The enemy is out to get them.
It's an active movement.
It is out to tell them it's okay to listen to this music. It's okay to watch this on TV. It's okay to watch these movies. And it's okay to do all these other things that really probably isn't okay to do. So you need to pray that God guards their hearts, and that when they start doing these things that you're not approving of, don't talk to them, talk to God, that He quicken their heart, that He quicken their spirit. I've gone so far as, and if my kids are watching this,
here it comes.
I have prayed they would get violently ill. And you know what? One of my kids called me a couple of times, Mama,
for doing
stop praying. I know it's you. So,
not just for the sake of to make them stop a horrible habit.
I want them to stop a habit that's not good for them. And the reality is, though, we need to pray that their hearts are changed, and that it's not just that. You know what I mean? It's like that might not have been the right way to pray, but it's what I knew.
Well, you didn't mean like a
no, I don't mean like
illness.
No. I mean like they would get sick at their stomach kind of stuff.
Yeah, little,
you know, like
a little porcelain bus driving.
Yeah,
or something.
That's what God knew what I meant. Hebrews 10:24, praying for our kids to be leaders and pointing others to Christ. And it's really cool when you do get to see your kids do that, or they're working in the church and they're doing praise and worship, or they, you know, our oldest ones was working in the church for a long time with the children, and specifically in a special needs area. We've got 2 boys that's done praise and worship and other things. And so it's kind of like, you know, those are all good things. Now, everybody needs a break. And, you know, I want you to be in your community, and I want you to serve, and I want you to get involved. These are to the adult kids and the adult parents. Get in your community and serve. Sometimes you need to take a break. Sometimes your ministry requires that you take a break. But you want to walk in all these things.
Yep.
So one more. Okay, I want to go over this before he starts this. We talked about what your adult children need from you. Your acceptance, your approval, your advice, your love, your guidance, and your wisdom. These are all things that they want you to pass down to. Don't be afraid to talk to your parents. Don't be afraid to parents to talk to your kids. Set up some boundaries if there's going to be anything, and do it all in love and wonderful. Pray for them to have wisdom, revelation, godly heart, supply the needs, all of the things I just talked about. And now we are on to the very last thing.
Quick list.
Quick list.
All right. Ways to bond with adult children. In case you're just like...
What would you
recommend?
recommend?
I don't know. Throw me some recommendations.
Some people might not know how to handle being with their adult children because they're not with them very often.
Or you might not be able to identify with them well enough because there's a gap. So you're like,
Yes.
well, I don't know how to identify with what we do. So the first
Right.
one we have, learn a new skill together. Crochet, knit, woodworking, ham radio.
Right.
Investing. Teach your
Yep.
kid how to invest if you're... Pass
Whatever
that down.
it is,
I don't know.
but y'all need to find something that's going to be fun.
But that's something in terms of a skill.
Or
And
go shooting, or go to
Right.
Top Golf, or
those
go
would be
bowling.
recreational
or,
things
Oh,
together.
sorry.
I don't have to learn about it.
Sorry.
And then you're at number 2, put down the phone and make a date. Go see them. For crying out
Right,
loud,
well,
one-on-one, get in their face.
Yes, and
Be
one
nice.
of the things that I do with
Share a hug.
Crystal is, now we don't really get a lot of one-on-one time because Kinsey's a baby and we take her with us. So
That limits what you can do.
But I do. We try to have girls' days.
You do?
And we don't get to do them as often because I'm working.
Hey, was her
But-
ears pierced?
No, I'm taking her
Alright.
to go. I'm going with her on our girls' day to get her ears pierced. Oh, so fun! And so yes, put down the phone and make a date to see them in person.
Right.
Go see them.
Go volunteer together.
Or if they don't live close enough, get on the phone and FaceTime them so you can
FaceTime
see their
works
face.
really, really well.
Because that's what we do with our son in Missouri.
You can get together and look at old photos.
Yep.
Get them alone. Spend some quality time
and
with
looking
them.
at old photos is always fun because the memories come back. Now, I know some of the memories are not so much fun. What, that I'm talking?
No.
Oh.
Some of those picture ramblings could be horrible.
Well,
Keep it in moderation. That's all we ask.
oh my goodness, I have so much fun. But you know what? The kids like looking at them too because they're like, oh, I remember this. That's when
Ultimately.
we went and did this.
Yep.
Oh, Mom, that was so much fun. That is awesome because as a mom, you're like, oh, I did so good.
I remember that house full of ants or whatever. Yeah. All those different memories that you have as a kid.
Yes.
Yeah. When you're talking to them, avoid yes and no questions and answers.
Right.
Just, ask them things that require that they actually talk
we
to
have
you.
questions like what we demonstrated with our getting to know each other more personally, where you actually have to sit here and ask each other questions that are more, but I mean, talk to them about other things. My son-in-law, we talk about football because I love football and he's
Right.
a Texans fan.
Right.
And you know what? I found something. I mean, there's more than just that. But that's one thing I always know that I can have
Connect.
a
You
conversation
can always
with.
connect there.
So it's whatever
Right.
whatever you can connect with to make the relationship. I have a great son-in-law. I have been super, super blessed with him. He is just a sweetheart. And I enjoy being with him. So, but the part that I like is I have somebody that talks football. Now, my daughter talks football. My boys are not football players, football people.
Not
And
a
I
bit.
don't know where I went wrong with that.
They
But
know
anyway,
of it. They just don't care about it.
which just
They could speak the language.
my daughter does a
Kind
great
of.
job. She knows it,
Yeah,
but my
she does.
sons don't know it worth a hoot, and I don't get it.
It's not that important, really.
It is. It's important to me.
But if you are going to talk to your kids, guess what? Be ready for a little bit of criticism. It's going to happen. It comes
Yes.
up. Let it roll. Let it roll.
Okay, and
Keep it in-
adult children, when you're criticizing your parents, could you do it,
Keep it real.
nicely and lovingly, just like we
Well, do
talked
it
to
where-
your parents
and
about
do it
being
only for a purpose.
loving? Well, yes, and
I mean, just who's
well, it does need to be for a purpose, but I mean, okay, so
Just
I
not
mean, let's
griping
just
at 'em.
get right. Well, okay, so your
Uh.
parents. I'm going to bring out your parents because when we first got married,
Yeah.
the one thing that they did that bothered me was
Mm-hmm.
telling me how to raise my children when I didn't ask.
It's true.
And
Unpre-
every time I
unrequested.
saw them, they told me how fat I was getting. Those were the two things that I
No
got.
kidding.
Every time I saw them.
Well, those things done in love to lift you up and make you feel good, they were just unthoughtful words.
Well, they were trying to be helpful.
Oh, that helps. Well, you're fat. That helps.
They were just...
That's not how it came out, but almost. Almost.
There was a couple of times,
Anyway.
but so
See what
our
I'm saying?
criticism
It's
to
still
them,
here. It's still resonating. Careful with the words.
well, just because it's how it was presented. So I had him go to them and say, maybe if y'all didn't do this so much, we'd want... And the funny thing is, I have the best in-laws. They are amazing. But that was rough at the beginning.
Sure.
And so the criticism was, could you please not do that? But it wasn't like criticism as in, oh my word, you're the worst. I
Can't
didn't
believe
do that.
you married him and
Right.
you're ruining his life. And
Well, no. I mean, like me criticizing
Right,
them,
right.
asking them to please not do it. That was what the criticism was about.
And of course, all things, if you're going to talk to your kids, it says here, it sounds terrible. I'm going to read it anyway because it's funny. It says, discuss adult topics. That's not what we mean.
Politics.
It could be if it's in the right frame. But I mean,
what they're
you're
saying
around the
is
kids
don't
24/7.
always talk about their children.
oh, somebody just wants to talk to another
Or-
adult about things that are not a children-like.
Yes.
You don't want to talk about
Yes.
the things that you're
Yes.
trying to escape from. Give them an avenue
Stop
to talk.
using their childhood nicknames. And
Yep.
really, all of my kids, only one had a childhood nickname, and that was Weston, and I called him Westy. And once about he got 18, he's like, "Mom, do you mind? Because that sucks." And I'm like, "Okay." So I've not called it that again. Now Drayton, occasionally I call Dre, but he only got that sometimes in high school because of Nana. Nana called him that, so I kind of picked up. But I think it's cute, Dre and Jay. It rhymes.
Okay.
Drayton and Jillian. But I don't always do it. I just do it some.
And of course, when you're communicating and connecting with your kids, include them together. Both he
Yes.
and she.
Oh, yeah. Always. You need to be with both of
do
the...
one and the other, but bring them together and make
You're
sure
talking
that it's all
about
inclusive.
their child and your child
spouse
and their
or-
spouses. Yes. Well, just like we talked about, we have some amazing... and I know not everybody does. We were both really blessed with, he loved my parents immensely. And I loved his, well, yes. I meant he has loved them for the last 30 years. And I have loved his. We were both very blessed in the fact that we really didn't have a lot of complaints with having in-law issues. So
Sure.
we can also say that about our daughters and sons-in-laws.
That's true.
We don't really have any issues. Our daughters are perfect for our sons, and our son is perfect for our daughter. And we have one that we're praying for the daughter to just show up whenever God's ready for it.
Right.
And we have been abundantly blessed. We don't have a lot of the, oh my goodness, and and none of the girls are trying to keep the boys from us, and
Nope.
Cody's not trying to take Crystal and run away and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we've been really blessed. We've got all this. Our families. It's not perfect. Don't get me wrong.
It's not
There's
perfect,
been
but
crap
we've been
too.
blessed with a lot of godly
But
principles with each of the families, and I believe that is a covering
Yes.
that we are relishing the fruits of.
Yes.
And I believe that wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. I mean,
Now, I know you have me. We're about at our end.
Yes.
And we've done our... Oh,
Yeah,
gosh, it's
I know.
45 minutes again. I'm sorry. I talk so much. I really feel like you're supposed to pray.
yeah. Okay,
No?
that's fine.
Am I putting you on the spot?
No, I'm always ready to pray. What's wrong with praying?
Well, I don't know. You had me down for praying.
Because
and
I try
I'm
to
just
get
like,
them to see us both pray.
I know, but I really feel like this one is yours.
Let's do it
Because you're the leader, and you're really leading
Yep.
the home, which leads the children, right, ladies? And so we want our children to model this.
There you go.
And for some reason in my spirit, I just feel like that.
I'll honor that. What I meant to say was I'll honor that. I don't know what I did. All right. Father, I thank you and I praise you for all things. And I thank you for the family unit. I thank you for establishing the rules, the order, the structure for all of us to follow, because you've established it for it's godly order for a reason.
Yes.
It's the hierarchy of the principles of successful lives that bring us closer to you, in line with your principles, in line with your ways. These are the things that take you away from sin. It takes you away from things that get you in trouble and sickness. It just keeps you inside where we belong, that we can reflect your glory. The more we can speak of you and live your way, the people see those people are different, and their lives seem better somehow. And I want a piece. I want to know what it is they're doing that's different, that's not working in my life. I want us to model that life that speaks to the billions of people on this planet that say they're different than everybody else. And it must be because of the godly principles that they base their lives on. And we should live that way every single day. I pray that we all are quickened with that when we wake up in the morning, and every single time that we take a step out of the house and we present ourselves to the public or even to each other within the house, that love is the binding mechanism that binds all of us together, Father. We just thank you that you are that sticky glue that brings us all together. And we just thank you as we all go through our days that we reveal your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
That's what we're trying to do.
Good night.
That
we
is
will
it.
see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.